feels that they are represented. In terms of sustainability, then you know what we're doing. The EV, like charging stations. We are working on a safe route to school, and the project is. So 2 minutes is too short. I think we go 5.
We'll move on to Aaron once the green card has been raised.
Well, thanks for having all of us here. This is a great opportunity. It's actually our first opportunity as candidates to get out in front of people, even though we don't have any competition, which is odd. But I take it, what I hope the reason why we're running unopposed, I hope that the reason that's the case is people are pretty happy with the way things are going. And so no one feels like it can do any better. So I feel like that's a testament to not only the council that we have, but also the great city staff that we have on board doing all the hard work that goes unseen. So I'm really excited about the next 4 years. I'm really grateful that you all came out tonight on a Monday to hear us talk. And so one of the things that I'm most proud of, Rachel alluded to it, we all on city council, especially the 4 of us, we don't all agree on everything. And we all have differing points of views. Some are a little right of center, some are a little left of center. But we all have the best interests of Lake Oswego in mind. And we've regularly always come together in really strong collaboration towards projects that other people on council don't necessarily agree with. But and so one of those that I think is a really great example of our great work together is affordable housing. While we all feel that it's an important thing to achieve in Lake Oswego, we all have very differing opinions on the way to go about it. And I'm really proud of the couple of affordable housing projects that we put together in ways that are really creative that made everybody happy with the result. And what I mean is people on city council, those of us who may have wanted to go one direction and wanted to go a different direction. And so I'm really proud of the collaborative effort that we have, and it's really shown in the capital projects that we've done, especially affordable housing. So you're really lucky, I feel biasedly, that we have a really strong city council. And
thank you for your.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, candidates, for your opening statements.
Now we will begin with our questions. And for this first question, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Aaron, followed by Joe and Masen. The question is, in July of this year, the City Council adopted the Urban and Community Forestry Plan to protect the health of our shared urban forest. What aspects of this plan would you like to see implemented in the next year? Aaron, when the timekeeper gives you the green card, you may begin.
I think there needs to be in my opinion, much more deeper community involvement, not just from community to us in their communication of what they want, but also council and staff engagement with the community. Because I think there's a lot of, there's not really consistent information for what people understand about our urban forestry plan and what it takes to improve it, to grow it, to keep it sustainable. And I think there needs to be more collaborative effort between the community and the city in what is achievable for a place like Lake Oswego. What is, one of the really important things people need to understand is if you look back over the last 20 years, our what do you call it? The tree canopy has actually grown significantly than 20 years ago. And so we're actually in a very strong place. Now we have work to do to preserve that and to continue that direction. But I think there needs to be more back and forth communication so that everybody understands the limits we have and the resources we have to achieve those things.
Thank you for your response. Now, Joe, when you get the green card, you may begin.
Thank you. There was so much good participation in putting that plan together. I know many of the community members here were involved in that process. We appreciate that. There is a methodical way that we'll be moving forward with implementation of the plan, that kind of makes sense. And one of the first things we need to do that's really important is an inventory of the trees we have. Really, it's hard to implement the plan without knowing what we're actually working with. So that tree inventory is going to take a little investment, but I think we have a good way of going about doing it. And then the next thing we're going to embark on is just some kind of tweaks to the tree code that are important. And we saw it's both recognition of when we had that ice storm, and folks are saying, hey, we need to have a little more flexibility here. When I hear from arborists that they're nervous to cut down trees in LO because we let them get to the point where you can barely climb it, to start taking it down, that's not quite right. But at the same time, we aren't mitigating as much as we could either. And so there's ways that we can strengthen and mitigate for a lot of the development we see happening in town to ensure that, like Aaron mentioned, over the next 2 decades plus, we continue to see that growth in the canopy.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank
I
you for
mean-
your response. Now, Sen, thank you.
Okay, I think where the mayor, ended his statement, because the tree code in Lake Oswego is very complicated, and people, I used to say that they take the tree for the forest, and I think the tree is hiding the forest. What is most important is we live in a place that's a forested area. We know the consequences of climate change. We saw last 3 years the storms we have and their impact. So I think the most important thing is after we see what do we have, what kind of trees will survive climate change, and that's where we should like focus on mitigation. When we are mitigating, when you cut a tree, what kind of tree should you plant? Is it just like you plant anything? We have also to talk to the arborists, the people who know in our community. We have many people in sustainability, in the watershed community who know what they're doing, and everything we do in this plan should be like something that's knowledge focused. So we have to have those people, and yeah, like for me, the most important part is to revise that tree code and change it, adapt it to climate change.
Thank you, candidates, for your responses.
For our next question, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Rachel, followed by Masen and Aaron. The question is, the city of Lake Oswego has a racist legacy, including redlining and excluding minorities from home ownership, as well as being commonly referred to by the nickname Lake No Negro. How will we address these issues and actively work to repair damaged relationships with BIPOC communities? Rachel, when the time card gives you the green card, you may begin.
Great question, and I think it's a challenging question. I think we all need to continue to grow, to learn, and to be open to having really difficult discussions. I think we've grown by the number of cultural events that we've been hosting throughout the last few years. We used to, I think pretty much they were non-existent prior or had very few. And they've really become, I think, a very key part of our town. I think people look forward to them. They enjoy coming together, they enjoy learning, they enjoy growing together. So I think continuing those types of events are very important. I think our library also has a lot of wonderful educational events, and I really appreciate all their work. And the DEI Advisory Board, I think, has been instrumental in working within the city to say, how are we doing in terms of recruitment? Are we doing better in recruiting and reaching out to get a diverse group of potential candidates? I think we've seen that especially in our police and our fire. We're getting more diversity, which I think is very important. I think, they help us in everything that we do. Each board and commission, we now try to view things through a DEI lens, which never happened before. So I think that those are some very important things that we need to continue going, and I think we need to never sit there and say, we're there, because I don't know that we ever will be there. And we need to continue to work with our community partners to understand where the needs are and how to grow and how to improve and be better people.
Thank you for responses. Masen?
Yes, I think, first of all, the idea Lake No Negro is not true, because there's a Negro here on the council. So we have to call and push back on those lies, because they are lies. People will paint I don't think there is any city in Oregon that's more progressive and advanced than Lake Oswego. So those are things that we repeat, and we have the sort of echo chambers. I don't think Portland is more progressive than us. I have been more harassed in those areas of Oregon than in Lake Oswego. We have very educated people, and racism is not, let's see the city, because most important are institutional racism. Is our city, there is no more, we fought, and these are people who are not black. It's Elizabeth Zeller and her husband who fought for the title that we remove all the racist things. The mayor and I, we testified, and Representative Wen was there. So things have been done. We are doing very well in Lake Oswego, and there is response to racism. That's in some area of America, response to racism will not exist. We are here, we are fighting, and we'll fight back on any idea of bigotry and racism. And the city is at the front. Everything, the DI lens is what we are applying on our commission.
Thank you for your responses.
So,
Aaron, you may
Sorry,
begin
Aaron.
when the green card's shown.
Yeah. Masen touched on what I was going to say, and I'm going to say it a little bit more directly. There's power in words, but as we all know, not all words are always true. And I think that, yes, I've heard the Lake No Negro, but as long as we keep repeating it and perpetuating it, it'll still live. So we need to move forward. If people want to speak those words, let them speak those words, but they're not true. I think we as a community are very progressive. I think we are a very open community. And I think the things that can continue to push us in that direction are all the things that we're doing as a community. This is not a council problem. This is not a city staff problem. This is all of you, too. We're all in this together. And when someone says, oh, you live in Lake No Negro, I would push back, like, where did you hear that? Why would you say that? Like, I'm the type of person that will get in your face if you say that to me. So it's on all of us to fight back on that, not just us. But some of the things that I think we can continue to do is continue to make everybody feel very comfortable and happy here in Lake Oswego with all the great events that we do, cultural events, and also continue to ensure that Lake Oswego is a place where young families want to live and raise families here. Because as the community gets younger, it becomes more progressive and more open-minded. Right on time.
Thank you for your remarks, candidates.
I am the first one to go.
For our next question, each candidate will once again have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Masen, followed by Joe and Rachel. The question is, in 2020, the City Council adopted its Sustainability and Climate Action Plan focused on city operations. What actions do you recommend to accelerate the implementation of this plan? Masen, when the timekeeper gives you the green card, you may begin.
Sustainability is very important. I always want folks to put words to actions and not just, there's a lot of way, even on the EVs. We cannot continue to sell EVs $100,000 and the fossil fuel machines like cheaper and expect that to happen. I'm glad that now things are getting more and more, sustainable. So in what the sustainability is doing, which I recommend, is they're advising the city to go to directions. For example, the EVs, we are working very hard with sustainability and, to make sure we have EV stations everywhere. There are a lot of things coming from the state also that mandate that now everyone who's building something will have to put all those things. We have the urban, we just talk about it. We are making sure that our resources, we become good stewards of that by using the urban community forestry. We as a council, we adopted that, and we are working. We hired folks. We have a DEI, we have an ADA, we have a sustainability person working to make the city more sustainable and more.
Thank you. Joe?
You know, like I mentioned in the opening statement, when we came up with the, when we moved forward with putting the Sustainability and Climate Action Plan together, it was really divided move. And the city manager at the time, different city managers that we have now, said, listen, this is going to be a 6-page report, because he was really trying to, like, you know, keep the peace. It's going to be 6 pages, and, you know, that's it. We're just going to really hone this thing down. Well, it ended up being 6 pages with like 50 plus, I don't know, a lot of pages of addendums, you know, kind of ridiculous. But the plan is really community oriented and ties together with, it ties into all the other plans that we have in the city, our parks plan, urban and community forest plan, these other things, which is important. The main thing, you know, the city is done a great job, like with the things that we invest in as a community, making sure that they are to the highest standard of sustainability. And that's big thanks to LOSN, and the Watershed Council and others who really are always there reminding us that we have to make these investments. And so that's good. That used to be more of a debate. Now it's something that we're just doing, which is great. The other part of the plan is what can we do, right? Like we're a city of, well, I don't know how many, we have like a dozen buildings in the city, but we have 18 like city-owned buildings, but we have 18,000 dwelling units, right, in the city. So what can we all do as community members to come together and do our part? And when I first came to the office, we created this Eco Home LO, and the students actually created it. And I would love to see that program. And it was an incentive-based program to really get more people engaged and provide the tools on how they could live more sustainable lives.
Thank you. Rachel?
Well, Jill, you took part of mine. I was going to talk about the eco home. You can't talk about it. But I think the eco home is a good first step, because one of the areas as a city, if we really want to start making big impacts, is looking at homes. Our residential housing can really, buildings play a huge part in emissions, and there's a lot we can do, and it all doesn't have to cost a lot of money. And people often think, oh, I need to replace my old wood windows. No, you don't. As a preservationist, I'll say it doesn't start with the windows. That's one of the last things you actually could go put a good storm window up, and that window is going to be as good as a new window. And if you maintain it, it will last 100 years. But so I think there's a lot we can do around education and advancing the eco home. I think that, again, gets it really broadly. But specifically as a city, I think we need to continue with working with our departments so that each department, whenever they take on something, that they're thinking about things through a sustainability lens. That's top of mind when they're taking on a project. Like, how within each department can they become more sustainable? What actions can they do that really keeps that in mind? And I know we've kind of, within the city, it's been talked about, but it really hasn't gotten strongly implemented. So that would be something that I would encourage, is that we just start everything we do, let's filter it through that sustainability lens, and what can we do to do better?
Thank you so much for your responses.
For our next question, as always, you'll have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Aaron, followed by Joe, and then Rachel. The question is, how can we create more culturally specific places for people of color to build community, feel safe, and see their cultures celebrated? Aaron, when the time...
Yeah, so how do we create more culturally specific places for people to build community? So everything costs money. And so I think the first thing we need to do is understand from the community what they would prioritize us to do. You know, we can't make the decision for you. We need to hear from you what, and the reality is everybody has a different idea of what that looks like. And as a city, as you know, has a finite amount of money to do things. And so I think we look to you, the community, to tell us what are the most important things that we need to do around those culturally specific events and elements of the city. We can't do that for you. But then it also comes down to cost. We can't do everything. I mean, you see the roads that we have, and we can't repave every single road. We'd love to, unless you guys want to pay more in taxes and a bond, which I don't think not everybody always wants to do. So we have to measure what the community wants versus what we can actually do. and prioritize it accordingly. And I think I think through our committee work, I think we can find out what those priorities are, raise those up, figure out, and then plan them out, make sure we know how much they cost, what the city can do versus what the community can do. But it really comes down to prioritization. And so I personally can't tell you which ones to do. We rely on you.
Oh, am I up next?
Joe,
Me,
Joe.
right? Okay.
Joe, you're next.
I tell you exactly what we can do. Build a community center. Yes. No, it's a big topic, but I do know I've been blessed to be able to work with the youth in the community for a long time now, and I know that having these spaces is critical. And there's lots of space in the schools, but the feedback I receive from youth in the community is that it's not always a safe space to meet and have places of gathering, within the schools. And these spaces within the community that are safe, that are culturally relevant, are critical to their well-being and their ability to thrive. So when we talk about, we've had a lot of discussion over this past year or so about the library and the community center. And part of the reason we're looking at the current library, which is a beloved space, it's a beloved space, but it just doesn't have it's not of the size that we need to be able to serve a community of over now 40,000 people with the needs that we have now. The needs are different than the 70s and the 80s when that structure was conceived. So really looking at how we have our spaces, and we think about an equitable community, is making sure that everyone has kind of equal access and opportunity. And we're a community that grew up around that downtown of LO, right? That's where the town started. It was all, and then we grew, and we took in, we swallowed Lake Grove whole, and we became this large city, and we expanded into Westlake and Mountain Park. And so now our town center has shifted, but a lot of our services still remain in that beginning. It's just the evolution of our town, but it is time for us to think about how we can provide.
Thank you. Rachel, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. I think this is one that I don't have the answer to. This is where I think it's important that we listen to the community and what is important to the community and what ideas do you all have? Especially, our students, because I think some of the most amazing ideas come from the youth in our community. They are so smart, they are so engaged, and they come up with things that I'm like, wow, I just didn't even go there. So I think it's really important that we engage with all members of our community and say, where would you like this? Are there areas of our parks? Do we need to, again, do our current buildings have spaces in them that we need to carve out and maybe highlight, or what does this look like? We have a lot of different types of parks. So again, is there something around bringing in different cultures in terms of, athletics or sports? Is there something more around languages or art? I think there's a lot of different ways, and I think the other thing that we have is we have amazing community groups. We have our, churches and synagogues and mosques and our, again, all the different organizations in town. And I think we need to come together and say, what do we want this to look like as a community, and how can we do this as a community? Because I think this is really important, as the mayor and Aaron kind of stated. But I think it needs to come from
Thank
within.
you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you guys for your answers.
For our next question, each candidate, again, will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Joe, followed by Aaron and Masen. The question is, it is well known that gas-powered leaf blowers cause significant air and noise pollution. Following the lead of Portland, what steps should Lake Oswego take towards banning gas-powered leaf blowers in Lake Oswego? Joe, when the timekeeper gives you the green card, you may begin.
So I'm really proud of the work the community has done on the gas-powered leaf blower front. I think Lake Oswego is well ahead of the curve of communities around us, in that the city itself has contracted with all-electric landscaping and has shifted its own parks maintenance and maintenance teams to electric equipment. That's one of the reasons why Portland, when they passed their ordinance, they have a long lead time, because they haven't done any of that shifting. They're all still running gas blowers, the city themselves. So like, well, we can't ask others to do it until we do it, So the city is leading by example. when we come to a time, as we're going down this path of moving towards, you know, a ban on the gas-powered leaf blowers, we have to do it in a way that brings everyone on board and handles appropriately and equitably the small businesses, you know, that are impacted. So businesses now see that this is coming because they see the big regional ban. Lake Oswego, as a council, we've discussed this, we and with our Sustainability Advisory Board, we want to follow the bigger city because there needs to be some kind of regional, I mean, honestly statewide, but it hasn't passed at the state. So now regionally, following Portland will enable there to be more consistency between the jurisdictions. So a lot of the mayors, we're talking about this, seeing what's coming out with Portland, but the important thing is the enforcement front. What we don't want is people calling the police on landscapers. And so Portland, I think, has it right in their enforcement that it goes to the homeowner. But it's really important that we look at these things through an equity lens and make sure when we're having these policies, it's not having it could have good benefit, but it's not having an adverse impact too.
Thank you. Aaron?
You're not gonna like my answer to this, so I'm just gonna be straight up with it. I don't think we should, and part of it, and Joe alluded to it. I think by banning gas-powered leaf blowers, you are seriously affecting the livelihoods and families of our Latino community members. I've talked to a lot of them, and the cost of the equipment, electric equipment, is very costly. They're not making a ton of money doing landscaping, and so we need to really consider who this is really impacting and how seriously that impact is before we do anything drastic. I do like the fact that we're waiting to see where Portland goes and how they do it. I'm very open to it. I just don't see how we can do it through a diversity lens and an equity lens without putting a lot of people out of work and affecting their livelihoods.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it has to be banned big time because it's, you know that if you operate a gas-powered leaf blower, it has 300 times the effect of a truck that's using fossil fuel. It kills, it disrupts habitat, it creates erosions, it destroys it. It can even lead people to be deaf. So if we want to protect folks who are doing it, we have to ban it. It's simple. It's like I will vote for it. It's something, I should not say that here, but sorry. But yeah, I mean, yeah, big time it has to be banned. It's something that doesn't help anyone. And honestly, blowing leaf, it's something every time I have a problem. When you blow it, where is it going? I mean, you blow it to the neighbor's house or what? It's one thing that I always want people to tell me where are the leaf going. So honestly, for me, it's something we should ban, like big time. We have to ban it everywhere. It's something, you know, I mean, you know, and I respect people who are doing it. It's not, but it's something bad. Before how many things have been done that were bad, that we know now is bad, and we say 300 times a truck, go check it. That's what it is. Let's ban it.
Thank you, candidates, for your responses.
Big time, yes.
For our next candidate, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Rachel, followed by Masen and Aaron. The question is, the Coalition of Communities of Color recently released a comprehensive report on the quality of life of communities of color throughout Clackamas County called Cultivating Belonging in Clackamas County. How can the city support tracking and publishing data on the quality of life of communities of color in Lake Oswego? Rachel, when the timekeeper gives you the green card, you may begin.
Thank you. I haven't seen this report, so I can't speak directly to it and what it is. But I think, again, it's community engagement. I think it's continuing to be very active with our members of color in our community and being engaged, helping make sure that we are opening doors and not closing doors. I think our DEI advisory board is really one of a great tool that we have as a city to help understand where the needs are and what's going on. I would like to take, I will go out and look at this report to understand more, like, how are they monitoring, what are they monitoring, so that we can, say, do we need to bring any of that to our city? And what should we be, looking at as a city and tracking, so that we can set some real goals. I think it's a lot easier when you know your starting point, and then you can set goals against that, and when you don't have a starting point. So I'll be very eager to look at that report and say, as a community, what do we need to do so we can do a better job of that, beyond just the information that we get from the police. So I think it's really important to say, you know, what can we do? What, you know, I'm learning, like many of us. And so, you know, what can we do as a city to become better, to become more welcoming, and to make sure that we are creating opportunity?
Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, yeah, I mean, data is very important on everything we are doing. I think the city is doing a good job on, like, the police report. Like now we know every year how many people are arrested, whether they're white, black, female, Hispanic, man. We have that data. So we know, is the police targeting certain people as of now? No. Like in Lake Oswego, we have data over there. How our communities of colors are living in Lake Oswego? It's a part of the census. We can go use PSU. PSU does stuff, you know, that, you know, we are doing. I don't think, you know, the city is doing certain work. We can continue on our DEI, we have like places at the city where we have staff that can do certain work. When we see some application, who's applying for this? Who is served in, for example, the Meals and Wheels? There are many places where we can get data and see the things. And I think most of the time, like, belonging is most important. Are our people of color, are they feeling comfortable in Lake Oswego? As of now, I have not seen something blatant that. Okay.
Aaron, you may begin once you see the green card.
What's that?
You may begin when you see the green card.
You might find this shocking, but our city council are a bunch of data nerds. So we are always digging into data. We're always digging into surveys. We're always trying to find out what the community is saying and what's important. You know, not more than a year ago, we got the results from our a big community survey that we did, which we felt was very strong. 93% of people feel like Lake Oswego is a great place to live and raise a family. That's really a great thing that we should all pat ourselves on the back for. But as Ms. Sen has said many times, there's always room to improve. I think data is always good. The survey is a great data point for us. But what is surveys but more of just representation of who's actually bothering to do the survey? So I think Joe was just saying to me that we're actually going to get briefed on this report in the next coming months, which is going to be great. But I think it's also important that the community not just wait for us to do these things. When we do community surveys, fill them out. Involve yourself, because if you don't, then we don't count your voice and we don't know what's really happening. And so it goes this. You're going to hear from me. It's very much a give and take. Like, we need to hear and we need to talk, and so it's not one-sided. But as long as people are taking the surveys, then we should know.
Thank you, candidates, for your responses. We will now take a short 5-minute break.
Ooh.
Wow.
have 1 more minute. Okay, I'll go. All right, if the candidates will return to their seats, that would be very appreciated. Thank you, candidates, for returning to your seats. Welcome back, everyone. Okay, so for our next question, as always, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. No surprise there. We'll start with Ms. N, followed by Joe, and then Rachel. The question is, as a member of our city council, how will you prioritize the needs and concerns of the most marginalized members of our community? Ms. N, when the timekeeper gives you the green card, you may begin.
Yeah, tough question. You know, no, tough, but we represent the people of Lake Oswego, and there is no, everybody is considered as, you know, a valuable citizen, be it a rich person, a wealthy person, a not doing so well person, like wealth-wise. Everybody, I think, you know, I prioritize everyone, I talk to everyone, I respond to all letters and emails except those that can be controversial, and it's maybe the moment to tell people that we cannot respond to certain, we're not doing it as mean people, but we are doing it to protect ourselves. We cannot respond when you write to us because we will have to recuse ourselves on a minute. But what I want to say is, as I can, I'm going everywhere. I go in the community, I walk in many events, I talk to people, the schools, the churches. I go everywhere to meet with people. I go to places that help, you know, the disadvantaged folks, and I am open to everyone. And, you know, I think as a city councilor, we work for all the people in Lake Oswego, and I defend those folks because myself, I come from disadvantaged population, and I come from even disadvantaged people, so.
Thank you, Ms. N. Thank you so much. Joe?
Yeah, it's a great, great question. This is, you know, when we help the, when we gear our policy towards the most vulnerable among us, you know, we help everyone. So really, I mean, the way that we make decisions is really through an equity lens of the city, really in everything that we do. Say one thing, like our climate action plan really needs kind of an equity analysis because again, the 6 pages, you know, divided council, yada, yada, okay, that didn't happen. But that's something we really need to go back and do and really look at how is everyone in the community benefiting from our decisions, especially those who are marginalized and who don't have the same opportunities as others. And so when we look at things through the equity lens, that's when we start building affordable housing. We invest in more active transportation and better public transit and advocate for that since, you know, not all these things we have control. It's around climate mitigation that impacts all communities, not just certain, you know, neighborhoods. And that's a hard thing for LO to recognize. Like, we're a very fortunate community, right? We're a community of primarily large homes on very low density neighborhoods. So we use a lot more energy than neighbors in denser, poorer areas of the metro region. And so looking at how we address that as a community, like through the energy that we buy and invest in, is important. But again, it's that lens in everything that we do, making sure that we're gearing our policies and decisions towards the most vulnerable among us, and it helps everyone.
Thank you, Joe. Rachel?
You know, I think kind of just going a little further from what Joe and Ms. Sen said, I think we're also fortunate we do have some very good programs in the community. And I think we need to continue to, you know, invest in those programs in the community, such as Meals on Wheels. But we also need to say, where are we maybe lacking? Where do we need to help fulfill that? And one of the areas I think is, you know, housing. And I think we've done a lot with housing. But we also have a lot of individuals in our city who maybe they need to downsize or they need different types of housing available. So I think we need to really look at our housing as a whole, you know, that we offer a variety of types so people can actually age in our community and go from that larger home to maybe a condominium or something. So do we have those options available? And so I do think some of the housing that we've been working on, the different policy, is starting to address that. It's gonna take time. I also think our 50+ advisory board has done a wonderful job looking at how are we gonna do in emergencies, are we going to reach the elderly or the disabled people that might need a little extra assistance? How do we make sure within our neighborhoods that we're reaching out to those neighbors who might need that help? So I think we have a lot of work that just comes from how do we help neighbors be good neighbors? Because the city might not be able to get there specifically to help those individuals because they're clearing streets and they're getting that electricity back on. So we need to work together from neighbor to neighbor, and how do we help everyone get ready?
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much. Thank you, candidates, for your answers.
All right, for our next questions, each candidate will, once again, have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Aaron, followed by Rachel, then Joe. The question is, and Rachel, you touched a little bit on this in your last response, what plans does the city have to ensure sufficient affordable housing units are available to disadvantaged and underrepresented community members? Aaron, when the timekeeper gives you the green card, you may begin.
Well, to be honest, we cannot ensure that everybody has an affordable place to live in Lake Oswego. It's not possible. We can do our best to provide as much as we can. But, you know, again, it's a resource issue and it's a land issue. We don't have unlimited land. We don't have unlimited money. And it's impossible for a city to, or any kind of jurisdiction, to give anything and everybody to make sure, anything and anything to people who are suffering. We do our best with what we have available to us. You know, people think, why don't we build more affordable housing? Well, why don't we have more land? You know, there's a lot of things that we're up against. We don't have a lot of space to build more affordable housing. We'd love to, but we also need to, as Joe mentioned earlier, we have a lot of people to serve, and you know, there are people that need affordable housing. There are people, like Rachel said, want to age in place and want to downsize. So, okay, what does that look like? And we have people that want to build homes to raise a family. And those are all priorities for us. We can't focus on just one group of people in everything we do. We have to think about everybody and serving the biggest good. So I'd love to say that I have all these ideas on how to ensure everybody has affordable housing, but it's kind of a question that's impossible to answer.
Thank you. Rachel?
You know, I think we've done a pretty good job in the last, you know, just handful of years. We kind of went from no projects going on for affordable housing to 3. And one, the Mercy housing is complete. Habitat is being worked on, and then we have the Hacienda, which will be hopefully breaking ground pretty soon. But that doesn't mean we can rest on our laurels. I think we need to, those projects came out of a lot of creativity. A lot of individuals, you know, talking to not business, but landowners who may be, you know, ready to sell their land or whatnot. And we need to keep searching for those opportunities. We need to keep our partnerships going with groups like Habitat for Humanity and also the county and Metro, because that's where some of the dollars are going to be able to come in, because we don't have extra funds. You know, to Aaron's point, everything costs money, unfortunately, and it doesn't grow on trees as much as we wish it did. We'd be doing great with our tree cover. happened. But we need to figure out, you know, like, where are some of these funds that we can use? Where are the land? And so we need to keep being creative, and then we need to keep working out, and we need to keep striving to find those partnerships and make things happen. And I think, again, we've got a good track record, but we need to keep going.
Thank you. Joe?
Yes, I mean, all of these, Rachel did a good job describing this. I mean, none of these projects that we have just like fell into our lap. You know, they all happen because of people's individual hard work to really make them happen, multiple people. So concretely, what we can do is, one, we're up on the cusp of adopting our housing, the city's first ever housing production strategy, which is our plan over a 20-year period for how we're going to address both the quantity of units that we're going to need and make sure that they are available at all levels of affordability to match the community. We've been adopting strategies this past year that address some of that. Those are incentives for affordable housing projects, so people to make the community more attractive to build them. But at the end of the day, that's never enough. And affordable housing developers, they really have a challenge to cobble together federal, state, and local funding to make these projects, and it's extremely difficult. And you may have read that many of the affordable housing developers are having a really tough time now, even just staying afloat. So Metro, the region-wide housing bond that we all voted for and that passed and that has funded a lot of these projects, it's done, right? So we're on the cusp now of, and we need to advocate for more region-wide funding for affordable housing. That's probably gonna come through the supportive housing services measure. I don't have time to talk, but there's ways we can advocate to get more region-wide money to come in for housing, and then the housing production strategy addresses the affordability and also the accessibility piece, ensuring that the units and the way that we zone and plan the community is accessible for everyone.
Thank you all for your thoughtful responses.
For our next question, each candidate will again have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Rachel, then Joe, and finally Masen. The question is, currently transportation and mobility options in the city of Lake Oswego are limited. Imagine you require a walker or a wheelchair. How do we make the city more accessible for our aging and disabled populations? Rachel, when you're ready, the timekeeper will give you the green card and you may begin.
I love this question. It's not an easy one, but I love it because I think it's so important. And if you can make more accessible pathways, they help all of us get around the city. And I think the more we can not use our cars and use our bodies to move, whether that's, you know, running, walking, bikes, scooters, whatever, I think, you know, it helps us in so many ways from a health perspective as well as an environmental perspective. And so that's why we've been pushing for, you know, not just safe routes to school, but actually making connections from, you know, city center to different neighborhoods, to different parks. You know, where are those critical pathways that we can start creating to make things more accessible and improve that transportation? It's not easy. If you look at the list that we have and the number of projects, it's in the hundreds, and the amount of money it's going to cost to do them all, it's a bond wouldn't even come close to doing it. So it's tough. We often have to make those really kind of challenging decisions of what comes first and where do you prioritize. And there's actually a master list of all of the different pathways and what needs to get done. So I think we need to just keep chipping away at it. We need to keep hearing feedback from our community of what's important to them, what are the connections that are important, what are the pathways, and we need to just keep striving because it's just so beneficial in so many ways.
Thank you. Joe?
But just to expand on Rachel's good answer there, you know, this city council created our first ever fund for pathways. And I see some of the former council members here will know that, you know, about 10 years ago, this was a real fight, you know, funding for active transportation. And we debated at the budget committee, you know, every year. And but now we have a council that's unanimous around investing in this active, safe transportation. So we are finishing with Lanewood and Douglas Circle, our first batch of pathway projects, and our transportation advisory board, community members like all of you, have prioritized the second batch. And this fund continues to grow each year. It could always use more funding, but honestly, we're spending, with the limited staff time that we have to engineer and do these projects, they're really doing everything they can so to be able to accomplish this handful of pathway projects. But Our Adult Community Center has a really cool program right now where they are picking folks up who are homebound and taking them out to the grocery store, taking them to Hunger Fighters, the food pantry. That's a program that we really need to expand. TriMet, there's funding. Everyone who works and earns a paycheck is paying into the state transportation fund, STIF. That money is not allowed to be spent on transportation projects like these local community shuttles, and I am working to advocate with our state legislative leaders and with the folks at TriMet to make sure that as they come in to talk about transportation this legislative session, that transportation funding is expanded to include these local shuttles.
Thank you. Ms. Sen?
Yes, I mean, 2 weeks ago, I represented the mayor in the state representative and Senate are meeting with the elected officials, the city, and all communities on a round table. And that the question of transportation is a very important question. The legislature is working hard on it. It's very important as a subject. This summer I was in Luxembourg and I saw the system they have of shuttling. I called the mayor and I put her on live and say, look, this is what we need in Lake Oswego. Those are electric little trains that can go all around the city, and that's we have to be very creative, to create those. And in Metz, the city of Metz, they have it. It's electric. It runs. It's very sustainable, and it can help, join, because it's harder. I always say it's easier to go sometime to Salem than to go from one part of Lake Oswego to the other. So it's a problem. And also we know, like the safe route to school for little kids and for aging folks, there's some street here, it's dangerous to walk there. So, but like we say, there's not enough money. The TSP has some stuff to do, and we
Thank
cannot
you.
fund everything. So
I'm sorry we're out of time for
Yeah.
this question, but thank you, candidates, for your responses.
Right. So for our next question, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Aaron, followed by Masen and Rachel. The question is, the city of Lake Oswego is required by state to increase the number of housing units. How will the city balance more houses with protection of natural resources? Aaron, when the timekeeper gives you the green card, you may begin.
I always get the hard ones. Why can't I get safe routes to schools? Yeah, how do we balance housing production, which is mandated by the state, with sustainable practices in protecting the environment? Does anybody else know? Because I need to know. I don't think any of us know how to do that. I think, I'm not trying to dodge the question. It's a really good question because no one knows the answer. I think that's what everybody's struggling with. I mentioned earlier that we don't have a lot of available land to build really any additional housing or anything for that matter. And so I think the challenge for us is finding partners, private partners who have land to, sell that the city would be looking to partner with on those projects. I don't think that Lusher Farms and the Stafford Hamlet is a viable option, although some people would suggest it. That's not something that, while I'm on city council, would ever happen. If you look, the challenge that we have in Lake Oswego really dates back to when Lake Oswego was founded. I mean, it was founded as, it's like a very rural community. And when properties were plotted out and built, they didn't think about a growing, urban metropolis that it is with 40,000 people. And so you don't have the roads you need. You don't have enough, large enough land to build these things. So I think we're really struggling with that question today. And so.
Thank you. Masen?
Didn't answer
yeah,
that
so
question.
I think it's HB 2001. I mean, we've been discussing that, and it's like how the urban growth boundary, we're not thinking of that. So no one yet. So that's the thing, that no one want to go there, no one want to go to Stafford. So the only way is, density, like cottage clusters, other things. And by doing that, they, like Aaron said, we live in a forested area, a city with a tree canopy that's so big. We cannot do houses without cutting trees. That's it's either you build a house or you protect the trees. You cannot, they're housing, you have to cut trees to build those houses. And all of us, the houses we live, there were trees there, and we cut them to have our houses, mine, yours, and anybody's. So it doesn't mean that we are gonna savagely, widely cut all the trees, but to protect, I think, the natural resources, we can build, we can mitigate. Yeah, there are a lot of things. The code is being, and honestly, our city staff, they're working very hard on many things. They're like challenging builders and all these folks, but at some point, this is what it is. We are a city that's very small. We don't have a lot of land, so we have to work together to protect natural and at the same time build housing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel.
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. This is an extraordinarily challenging question and issue. But one of the areas that I would like to see the city is relook at their zoning. And there's certain areas where housing is not allowed, where actually you could do multi-use buildings and create some more density in those areas. And so I think we should really look at zoning and say, where can this? Is there a way that we can encourage more buildings to, again, maybe you have your businesses on the bottom and more housing above. I kind of look at Boone's Ferry. I think we want to be a little careful about heights because we don't want things to get really wonky. But I think there are opportunities there to get some housing in some areas. And, those are also when you're kind of near your city centers where the density makes more sense. It also then could encourage TriMet to give us more transportation down the road as well. We also, this is long-term, but we have foothills. And with the new wastewater treatment plant, we're gonna have an opportunity to rebuild foothills and really get some density and some potentially really cool features for the whole city down at foothills. And, as a community, we just say, what could this look like? What do we want it to look like? What do we want it to be? And so I think we have some possibilities. It's really challenging, and I think we still need to balance, we need to look at that tree code. How do we balance development and trees? How do we make sure we have street trees, which are covering that pavement so it's not getting so hot? So there are things like that I think we need to look at.
Thank you all. Thank you for your responses.
For our next question, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Masen, Joe, and then Aaron. The question is, our community members of color continue to report being subjected to racist behavior, including frequent and persistent microaggressions. How will we use city resources to address the microaggressive actions and comments that POC individuals within Lake Oswego face? Masen, when the timekeeper gives you the green card, you may begin.
That's a $1 million question. I mean, like microaggressions, it's folks are doing it. I mean, I believe in the beloved community. I believe in Dr. King that everything we can have, we cannot have it by shaming others, by doing, we are better when everyone living in Lake Oswego is better. We don't need to be aggressive towards me because the way I look or the way I speak, I talk, the way I walk. It's not something that the city, we cannot do anything about it. And as a matter of fact, the police we are talking about, they're always called by neighbors. The police never goes to harass some folks most of the time. People call them, and so it's us. We have to build our community and be nice to each other, and it means shedding love. Like we have to love each other. That's the only thing. I can't tell someone not to be aggressive towards me. And we know, I live that all the time, microaggression. People are asking me, where did I go to school? Like people are asking me if I am the limo driver. People are asking me, but it's not Lake Oswego, it's everywhere. We gotta be good, we gotta be love. We should shed love to the community. That's it. The city cannot legislate that. We can't. We cannot do that. So.
Thank you for your response.
Yeah, that's I mean, it's a real, we hear it in your question from members of the community. I have people that work for me that have described, what they experienced walking down the street. And it's not the same experience that I have. And so for hearing those voices, for starters, is critical. Hearing those experiences, having the forums, the safe spaces to be able to share them is really important. And I mean, obviously it's sad, it's tragic to hear that people don't feel safe, walking down the sidewalk in the middle of the day or through their neighborhood without getting looks, or working in a business without facing constant, looks and other microaggressions. And that is a big community issue here. And I think that we lead with our voices and we lead with our actions, but we are not at every dinner table in this community. And that's really where it starts, is at home. But I think what we've been trying to do with our agenda is to set forth that example that others can lead from, to know that Lake Oswego is not a community that's going to tolerate that kind of behavior, that we are a community of love, that we're a community of acceptance, that we're a community of much diversity that's to be embraced, that makes us the special place that we are. And I think we just have to continue, spreading that message, and even in schools, and hoping that, and in our faith institution. Oh, okay.
Thank you for your response. Aaron, you may begin when you see the green card.
I'm going to date myself here. So for those who are a little older, you might understand what I'm saying. So just today, I was watching Bobby Kennedy give a speech in Indianapolis the day Martin Luther King died, and he said something that I thought was quite relevant to the question we just are talking about. He said that, in the society we live in, in general, people are really, really good. There are going to be a few bad white people, and there's going to be a few bad black people. That's what he said. And what he's communicating to the audience, telling this predominantly black audience that for the first time they didn't know that Martin Luther King died, is, yeah, bad things happen in the world, and it's terrible, but in general, society is good, and we can choose two paths. We can choose to be bad, or we can choose to be good. And I think in this question, what it brings to me is, this government it's not our job to tell people how to treat other people. It's our job to create spaces and moments where people can learn to be considerate and teach them not teach, but encourage people to be respectful. If people want to be mean and intolerant, that's on them. They will weed themselves out of society, in my opinion. But we need to be strong individuals and rise up and be on the good side of things. And over time, those bad people will go away.
Candidates, thank you for your responses.
All right, candidates, as always, your next question, you're gonna have 90 seconds to answer. Aaron, I'm sure you'll be happy to hear this one's an easy one. There is a shortage of space for community groups to meet. The Adult Community Center and the library are wonderful spaces. Please share your ideas on having these or other facilities open on evenings and weekends to provide space for community groups. Joe, then Masen, then Aaron. Joe, when the timekeeper gives you your green card, you may begin.
Yes. Okay. Perennial Prawn, you gonna go back. Community center. These spaces that we have, unfortunately, the library has great events that take place. Who here has been to an event at the library? Yeah, a lot of us. Okay, who here has felt crammed in an event in the library? Yes. Unfortunately, it is, and it is not a substitute to shuffle a library event to some other building that has nothing to do with the library because it's bigger. Okay, so we when we were building the maintenance center, we created some community meeting space in that center. And then in City Hall, when we did the new City Hall, we want to have community space. Let me tell you, every time we add community rooms, they fill up like this, and it's just incredible. And staffing at night is tricky because it's the staffing. I mean, our city employees are working all day, and then to have people here at night, you know, it's logistically a challenge. So having those safe spaces, which is why the library is great, because it's the thing that's open the latest. So that's why we envision a community center and library together that would provide that kind of access that's just kind of built into the way it is, but we have to invest in it as a community, and it's a big change. It's a big change. We're going to need people's support if this is the path that we want to go down, but this is how we can provide that community gathering space, which is great for social sustainability, and it's great for longevity of the community.
Yes, I mean, I agree, you know, that we need to, you know, have all the people in our community be able to express themselves, to be in places they want to go. But nighttime is a very difficult situation. The ACC, I've been there for, like, Hunger Fighters had their gala there. I think it works. The library continues to work for a long time. And for the record, the reason the library now, when they say, oh, it's not going until 8 o'clock or stuff, no. These folks, the time they were using that, they're using it to go in the neighborhood to distribute books. So they're still working. And like you say, once some of you will be in government, we cannot have, we don't have the budget to make like a space work 24/7, because you will always take money from somewhere to put there. So that's a problem. The ACC cannot continue to function all night long. We cannot have people go there without the supervision of the city. So there's the time it opens, people can go there. The library is great. It's open, and like Joe said, let's have a community center. We've been working on that. I even think that one day I talked to one
Thank
member
you.
of. Okay.
Aaron?
So,
This is a much easier question. So Joe and Masen both said two things I was going to say, which is, you know, staffing and City Hall. Staffing is a real issue. Like, put yourselves in the position of somebody that works on the city staff. They work from 8 o'clock to 6:30, and then they have to go and open up the ACC for 3 hours when they need to be home, picking up their kid from school, or making dinner, or you know, starting a business. So we need to be respectful of the staff, because you guys don't see the hard work they do. Like, it's pretty remarkable how much work they do, and honestly, they don't make a lot of money doing it. You don't make a lot of money in city government, people. So that's a real issue. And I think, you know, we're building the LORAC, the Lake Oswego Recreation and Aquatic Center. That'll have meeting spaces. I also think that, you know, we're really fortunate in this community to have a great relationship with the school district. I don't want this to get into a Lake Grove issue, but we have a really strong partnership. We're very friendly with them. We partner on a lot of things together because, you know, what they were, you know, the two scopes of work are connected. And so we have an ability to work with them on certain things, like finding space for some of these programs. So that's something that we can always work on and help facilitate. So, but you know, limited resources and a ton of things that people want us to do. So we're working on it.
Thank you, candidates, for your answers.
For our next question, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Rachel, followed by Aaron and Masen. We have an opportunity to make the wastewater treatment plant a net zero facility in the future. What measures should Lake Oswego take to make the wastewater treatment plant as sustainable as possible? Rachel, when the timekeeper gives you the green card, you may begin.
Well, I think we started by choosing the type of system that we're gonna use, which is already gonna be 40% more efficient than the current system. So I think we have a really good start. And I'd also would like to thank the Sustainability Network for working with city staff to come up with a lot of wonderful ideas of how we can make this building more energy efficient and ready to use. So I know we've talked, it's gonna have a lot of solar panels on it, and there's a lot of other features, and I think we need to continue as we're working with a new partner for it to make sure that we have as many sustainable features in this plant as possible. I really would like to see it, at least make sure it's ready to collect the gray water and use that for irrigation within foothills. I think that's really a very important feature that it has. I also know there's a few other things that in the immediate future we might not need with the wastewater treatment plant. You know, we might, I'm forgetting all the technical terms and that's why. Yeah, the biosolids. You know, in the future, we might want to deal with the biosolids on site. Right now, they're saying we'll bring them down to the plant in Portland on the Columbia. But again, I think we need to plan for the future. So we might be able to build so much right now, but we need to make sure we build it that it can be adapted for future changes if needed.
Thank you, Rachel. Aaron?
Aqua Narita. That's the name of the technology that they're going to use in the wastewater treatment plant. It's called Aqua Narita. I don't understand it, but it's really cool. There's a YouTube out there. Okay, so all jokes aside, it's very, you don't often talk about how beautiful a wastewater treatment plant will be. It's kind of, weird to talk about, but we're going to, from a sustainability aspect, you're going to take something that was a massive footprint of what it is now to a fraction of that size. So not only is that a sustainable action forward, but also all the things Rachel mentioned with solar and the circularity of the energy that we're using. Also, what we envision is redeveloping that whole area. So think about retail, think about housing, multifamily housing, and those buildings are all going to be built in sustainable ways that, ideally, it's a very low carbon footprint in the entire area, and it can be an example to the entire geography of what sustainable building practices and development could look like, especially for a facility that no one realizes does a lot of the dirty work in your communities. So I'm really excited about it. I think we have a new partner, which is going to be a little bit a better partner for us, and 10 years from now, we're going to have some clean water.
Thank you. Masen?
No smell.
Yes, I mean, it's a water treatment plant. You all know how it is, It's those nice job that not many people know. Every time you flush your things, I think it's wonderful to think. The first day they told me we are gonna put housing there, I say, what are you talking about? And that's when they explained to me that water treatment plant will be not only like my friend said, Aaron, it was a huge plant that's gonna be so small and mostly underground that you don't even smell. You can walk there, you won't smell the things because it's gonna use new technology, new, like, that the one at Gresham, I heard it's also very sustainable. This one we are building will be more sustainable than the Gresham one. So in terms of using solar, it's a really, aqua radar, as you say, but honestly, I'm so excited about these new things that we are building. We are putting a lot of money. It's gonna be operated by folks. We have, many people are, just try to do that work. So, yeah, I'm happy how sustainable this plant will be, and that will be under us.
Thank you. Thank you for all your responses.
Thank you, candidates. We have really appreciated your thoughtful responses this evening, and I'm sure you'll all be pleased to know that we are done with questions and it is time for your closing statement. So we have suggested that the candidates respond to the following prompt for their statements. What is something related to equity and sustainability that you hope to accomplish in your next term? Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their closing statement. We'll start with Aaron, followed by Masen, then Rachel, and finally Joe. Aaron, when the timekeeper gives you the green card, you may begin.
Got 2 minutes. The next 4 years, I hope, are a copy of the last 4 years, in the sense that I was talking to Joe's dad actually before this, and I have to admit, I told Joe this about 6 months into our term. During the campaign, the rhetoric can get a hold of people, and you can get, build up these unknown kind of reasons why you shouldn't like somebody. And I'm admittedly a little right of center, and Joe's a little left of center. And during the campaign, we were told by our various camps, you got to watch out for this other guy. He's on the other side. And pretty quickly after working together, I turned to Joe, we're at coffee at Lola's, and he's like, and I go, Joe, I kind of like you. And I was told not to like you, and that's unfortunate, so I apologize. And since then, Joe and I have a very strong relationship, a very collaborative relationship, and all of us have. And I think to answer that question, it's the diversity of thought and the open-mindedness that I have, as well as everyone else on the council has. I'm really looking forward to continuing on that for another 4 years, because I know we've done amazing things as a council together, coming from different walks of life, coming from different backgrounds, coming from different countries, and different ideologies. We joke and laugh in council meetings. Does that happen anywhere else? Like, we're actually all genuinely friends outside the council. And so we're able to be very productive because of that. And I just look forward to continuing that diversity of thought for the next 4 years as we continue to make Lake Oswego a very safe place to live, a very productive place to live, a very loving place to live. And I think you guys are all very, pat myself on the back, you're very fortunate to have a great city council doing the hard work.
Thank you.
Yes, I mean, like, what I believe in, I'm repeating it, the beloved community. I think Dr. King make it very clear. Rising tides lift all boats. Equity. If we have an equity lens in everything we are doing, we are going to build that beloved community, without which we are going to die, like he said, as idiots. That he used. The word idiot is a word that says people who are not smart, who are doing the same thing and repeating it at the same time. We have to work to love each other, and it's the developing access, developing equities, like lifting all barriers. That today we talk about that. It makes me sad to see kids in our school saying that they are not considered. Kids of color, and these are facts that they tell you, that kids, that people say, oh, I am afraid to walk alone. We cannot live in a society like that. We have to live. My only reason I'm volunteering in this council is I believe in Lake Oswego. I believe that we can do better, and that we are doing better. And we are doing better in terms of sustainability. Everything, you see the policies we are putting into place. We are building everything, taking into account climate change. We have, you look at the forest plan, look at everything we are doing. We recruited people who are working on that. And I think Lake Oswego will be better when everyone will see themselves and say that I'm proud to live here, not being afraid, not being hassled, not being aggressed, assaulted or anything by microaggressions, by some petty actions. I love Lake Oswego, and I am asking people to follow that lead of Dr. King. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, Rachel?
So I'm actually really excited about just continuing to learn. I have learned so much about so many different things over this past 4 years. I mean, I never thought I'd be excited about a wastewater treatment plant in my life, but it's actually really interesting to learn. And so I'm interested in learning about more, practical things, again, like the treatment plant, more about different areas of sustainability that I might not be aware of, what we can do to serve our community and our, community, people of color. I'm also, part of that, then I learn more about myself. And I really appreciate that, because I hope that I continue to grow as an individual and become a better individual and a better human. And that takes openness, but it also takes, not just from me, but from the community. And so I feel really blessed that I live in a community of people who are willing to come and share their experiences with me. Also maybe come and say, hey, Rachel, you might not realize it, but this came across this way, and let me reflect and grow. That's really important. So I'm really excited about doing that. I feel so lucky to be working with my brothers here, and to be able to help make positive change. We're not always perfect. We do our best. We, don't always make everyone happy. But I do think we are trying to really listen to our community and to make positive change, so that we continue to become more welcoming, that we continue to reflect and say, where maybe didn't we make the best decisions, and how can we do better in the future? Not just for ourselves, but for everybody in our community. So those are some things I'm really looking forward to the next 4 years, is just continuing to grow, continuing to becoming more welcoming, continuing to becoming more sustainable, so that we can really leave a positive place for the kids and their kids.
Thank you. And finally, Joe.
Well, I want to express some gratitude to all of you for the really thoughtful questions, to my colleagues for the great engagement, to all of you for coming here tonight. I mean, hearing, the topics that you all are, interested in, these questions really helps inform our work and better understand your perspective. So, let it not, of course, it's not just at this forum, we all talk and everything, but it's good to continue this dialogue. It's really critical. On that front, an engaged community, like our democracy, our local democracy is stronger when we're all engaged. And it takes engaged leadership. And having been on this city council, I'd say it's a challenge, to have a volunteer council in a town that has champagne expectations. And I'm not even gonna say beer budget, it's like tap water budget, And we produce this, it's less than a penny to produce this water. That's the kind of budget so that's challenging. And we're thinking, not of course ourselves, but Lexi, Luna and I were talking about the term limits, before this started. And so we're always recruiting. We have 2 term limits here. So we're always like, who's gonna be the next group of leaders, and thinking about how can we set them up for success so they can continue this good path that our community has been on. And I think over this next 4 years, I really want to look at how we're compensating the people that lead the community in a more equitable way, that is more reflective of the immense amount of work that this requires, and the amount of work it requires to do it well. Anyone can hold a place and sit in a chair, but what's unique about this group is everyone works so hard at it, and for nothing. And it's kind of like, well, thank God we can all do that because of individual life circumstances, but that's not always going to be the case, and it's just not the right thing to do. So I mean, for the continued engagement of all of you who, and it's hard to say because I know you all spend immense amount of volunteer hours doing tons of everything, but of course we all do that too, and have our families and everything else. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Again, candidates, thank you so much for your responses tonight. And I'll now hand it back over to Bruce from Respond to Racism and Dorothy from the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network.
Can we just get a round of applause for our student moderators and timekeepers tonight? So, candidates, we'd like to thank you all for participating in tonight's forum. We are very grateful that you are willing to engage and be responsive on issues relating to diversity, equity, inclusion, and sustainability. If audience members have questions for the candidates, we encourage you to reach out to them.
I'd like to thank all our candidates for their thoughtful answers. In some cases, a forum such as this culminates in endorsements. And for this election, which you're all running unopposed, it's not really an appropriate question at all. But Respond to Racism and Lake Oswego Sustainability Network are both, as 501c3 organizations, don't endorse candidates. So that's just for the record and for your information. We do encourage you, however, the audience members, to stay involved. If there is one theme I heard over and over again from these folks is they want to be our representatives. They want to hear from us. They want to hear ideas and solutions. So do stay involved. Our city council members have stepped up for free. They are not being compensated. And they need our help to accomplish these important equity and sustainability issues. So, I know what I was going to say. I was going to go, so Lake Oswego is pleased to have collaborated with Respond to Racism for this forum. And if you're interested in some of the other activities that LOSN does, you can sign up for our newsletter and find out more about those things on our website at losn.org. There you'll find information about our upcoming Urban Forestry Summit that's on Saturday, November 2nd. We heard a little bit about the urban forestry plan tonight. And also a repair fair where you can bring your broken stuff to get fixed, which is Saturday, November 16th.
And we also hope you'll join Respond to Racism on December 13th for the Bruce R. Poinsett Awards Gala. Please.
Your dad.
Yeah. Please register on our website, respondtoracism.org, and also make sure to nominate local individuals, businesses, and organizations for the Bruce R. Poinsett Honorary Persons and Businesses Award. Lake Oswego is a town that strives for excellence in so many areas, and it's important that we lift up those who push it forward in anti-racism as well. Again, please visit respondtoracism.org to receive more info about the event. Thank you for your time this evening. Please remember to submit your ballots by 8 p.m. on Election Day, November 5th. Good night.
Thank you.
Miss Sen, are these yours?